everything like the hammer loves the nail. Let's stick that right there so it doesn't move. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jamie and today I have run out of ideas. I haven't read anything. Well, that's not true. I have read things. I hit a very big reading slump during that challenge we talked about in the last video, and I ran out of my Dollar Tree books with that. I didn't finish enough of them, or I didn't have any ones that I could like make a video of since reading after the flood. Other than that, I have been reading other books, but they're not books that I feel like making a video of. I could make a reading wrap up, but I do that on my TikTok, and I don't really feel like I will make anything entertaining by talking about those books at the moment. But I've just really hit a creativity slump when it came to making videos, and then all of a sudden it's been like a month since I've posted and I had no idea what to do. I felt like I needed to make a video of some sort, but I didn't feel like any ideas were happening. I actually got all dressed up and made a video a couple weeks ago actually, and I realized that my lav mic was not working, and I don't know why. There's nothing on my camera that indicates the mic is plugged in or isn't plugged in or is working or isn't working. So there was like absolutely no way for me to tell until I started editing, and it was a very long video, so I just like gave up. But I don't know what keeps it from working or not. So if this video also has no sound, I think I might just quit life. I thought I'd go through my entire catalog of Dollar Tree books and pick out the top 10. If you're not familiar with my channel, I do Dollar Tree book reviews. So essentially, I go to Dollar Tree. If you don't know, they have a section of books. They are, I forget, there's an actual term for it, but I forget what it is. But it's basically the last stop before they get thrown in the trash. They are coming from Target, Walmart, other booksellers, and they're either overstocked, so there's like a lot of them, or I think they're only overstocked. I don't know why they come to Dollar Tree. And you find just some weird books. Like some of them are, they're there because they're not being bought other places, and it makes sense because they're trash. And then there are some books where you're like, how did this end up at a Dollar Tree? Why is this not being sold for millions of dollars? Like, this is the most amazing book ever that I've ever read in my entire life. So like, it really varies with Dollar Tree. Now, I make book reviews based off the ones that I find at my local Dollar Trees. It used to be that I would tell you if it was worth $1. I keep forgetting to do that at the end of the reviews now. But I thought I'd go through my catalog of books and really just tell you about the good ones, the top 10 that I personally have read. Obviously, we're going based off of my location. A lot of these you are going to have seen before because I make reviews on almost every Dollar Tree book that I read. So some of these are going to be familiar. I'm gonna try and keep from going too in depth with it and just kind of give you the highlights or why I liked it. But if it's something I haven't reviewed on my channel, I will maybe explain it a little bit more. And this is poking me. This is gonna go in no particular order, so I'm not like ranking them or anything. I'm just telling you the top 10. Let's start with the only one I don't have. So this is the only one I can remember giving like a really high rating to, but I recently did a deep dive, like unhaul anything that I just am not happy having on my shelf immediately right now. And I just recently gave that book away. So I feel a bit bad about that, but it was a really good book. I just realized I wasn't ever going to reread it, so I decided to give it away. Give the Dark My Love by Beth Revis. Give the Dark My Love is a fantasy book that I read in like 2021. This is a fantasy book in which medical alchemy is like a big thing. So there's alchemy, but it's not really scientific. It is magic. It is a magical thing, but it's used for medicinal purposes. So they are using alchemy, the transformative processes of alchemy, to cure people and basically be surgeons and do things. It's been a while since I've read it. Main character Nedra lives in the poorer village, so on the outskirts of I believe it was an island country, but she lives on the outskirts of this country, and her village is very poor, and there is a sickness, a plague that has taken over her village, and this plague is horrible. There's no cure to it. It's a very sad and slow death. There is no way to comfort them, ease their pain in any way. And one of the big reasons that Nedra is wanting to become a medical alchemist is to find a cure for this plague. But not only that, to also show the capital that it's happening. They are not getting any resources from the capital, from the king in charge. He's not spending any money or time helping the people who are being afflicted by this plague. Now, everyone who is talking about it, especially in the richer areas, is like, oh, well, it's the poor person plague. They get it from bad hygiene. They're getting it, like you see it in the factories, because the poor people are gross and they don't take medicine and things like that. And Nedra is trying to quell that rumor, that like stigma against the plague, and say, no, it can affect everybody. It is just an illness that needs resources. These people need help, essentially. And so she gets a scholarship to become an alchemy student and learn the transformative properties of medicinal alchemy. There are a couple of commandments of alchemy, such as don't bring the dead back. That's a pretty big one. And that is, that would be considered necromancy, and that is a big sin. That's a big no-no. That's something that overhangs in the story as a very important plot point. I'm not going to give too much of the story away. It is a great story. It was, at least at the time that I read it. Like I said, I didn't reread it before giving it away. So at the time that I read it, when I was a 21-year-old, living post-pandemic, like we were still in the pandemic at that time, it really, really hit. A lot of the plot points, a lot of the ideas that were being thrown around about the plague and about the people that the plague affected really resonated with what was going on in the world at the time. And so it really hit. You do see the grief and the toll that it takes on Nedra as she watches the people around her suffer. It was paced beautifully, and it does have like a kind of predictable twist at the end, but you're still like, oh my gosh, how dare they do this to her? It might have a sequel. If it does, I never read it. I really read it as a standalone, and whatever was left untold, I didn't really care about. The only thing I didn't really like is that it is split perspective between Nedra and the prince character. Is he a prince or is he a lord? I think he's a lord. That guy who's kind of like a love interest. He's very much like rich man being forced to become an alchemist because that's what his father was. He has perspective chapters, but they're so few and far between that at some point I kind of forgot that he had a POV. And if it was only just Nedra's POV, I think it would have been better. If you just cut the chapters that were his entirely and just filled it in with more Nedra. But yeah, that was the only thing that I critiqued about the book. I remember critiquing about it. But it does hit very hard, especially if you are still traumatized by the lockdown and COVID and the pandemic, all the things in the world at that time. Oh my gosh. The Swallows by Luts. I actually recently rewatched my video about this. It's a good video. I'm a smart person. Anyway, The Swallows is about a boarding school. It has a few different perspective chapters, some of students at the school, some of teachers at the school, but the main meat of the story is that it is trying to tear down the really gross secret society, secret forum that all of the boys have. The senior boys kind of run it and they pass it down to the younger boys as they grow up. And this whole forum is about ranking the girls in their class on their attractiveness and their, it's really gross, their sexual exploits. It's terrifying. It's a gross read. It is not meant to be like a happy-go-lucky, like, oh, girl feminism, that kind of stuff. It really hits you with how disgusting some boys, not everyone, but some boys can be just because of the environment that they were raised around, how it gets rewarded. That kind of behavior gets rewarded by their peers because it's cool and because, they're acting so much older and they're getting to have sex and whatnot, when in reality they are just children who have been shaped by their environment just the same way as anyone else in the world. And it's really difficult to get through. At first, it's really childish and kind of immature. You kind of have to get through a couple bumps in the road at the very beginning to be like, oh my God, this could be told to me in a different way. Or like this adult teacher sounds like she was written by a 14-year-old. That kind of writing at first, but I don't know if I just got more used to the writing or if the writing just improved, but once you get sucked into the book, it is very intriguing. It's not really a mystery. There's no really like unopened answers. It really is just character, action-based, you know, a character and behavioral analysis of rape culture in a boarding school and the things that come with that, which it sucks, but you know, it was an interesting read. The Last Newspaper Boy in America by Sue Corbett is a children's book. You can see it's tiny. It's almost like a novella. This is about a young boy who has a family tradition of being the newspaper boy in his very small town until like right before he's supposed to take on the title of being newspaper boy. The paper calls him and is like, your route is cut. So this is a cute little story explaining like the right of knowledge, and it's told in a really cute and digestible way. I always say this when I talk about this book. It's very digestible for kids because it has like such very complex ideas, not just like classism within journalism and classism within like newspaper stuff, but also like financials, venture capitalism, and then it also, like, the kid is really into math and science. He uses his physics knowledge to beat a wicked carny at like at like a rigged carnival game. It's really cute. It's a really cute book that helps young kids, I hope young kids, understand why knowledge is important. And I love that because in this age where you feel like you have the entire world of knowledge at your fingertips, so much of it is behind a paywall, so much of misinformation, disinformation is free, while real research is behind some sort of classist paywall that doesn't want people to all know the same thing. That is something that like we need to really discuss in this world, is like, especially with like AI coming in and making false information more readily available. We need the freedom of research. And yeah, this book was great. Spill Zone by Scott Westerfeld and illustrated by Alex Puvilland. Scott Westerfeld, yes, the same guy that wrote the Ugly series. I've never read that, but I did read The Spill Zone, which, look how beautiful this is. I'm surprised I found this. This is a graphic novel, as you can see. Ugh. Oh, I turned to a black page. Okay. This is a graphic novel. This is about a family that still lives within the spill zone. So at a nuclear power plant, at some sort of power plant, like nuclear weapons power plant, something or other, there was a spill and it caused some really creepy, otherworldly beings to inhabit the city. A lot of people died and a lot of the dead still are there, but like as almost floating like not zombies. Sometimes they kind of talk, but they're just like, they're almost like floating puppets. And there's so many like weird morphed objects, like things are weird. It's being haunted by these alien-esque beasts. So like wolves, but they're shadow wolves and all this other stuff. These two sisters live within the spill zone, so they still live in their family house that is just on the very outskirts. It's on the safe perimeter of the spill zone. And the older sister sneaks in to take pictures and sell her art of the spill zone, which is a felony, on the black market. Her younger sister has never been the same since the spill zone. I mean, they both have like the entire grief of losing family and friends and their whole livelihoods to this spill, to this weird thing. But there's also something else going on with her sister. She doesn't speak anymore. She has this doll that she speaks to, like she telepathically, I think, speaks to, and the doll is kind of weird. It looks like she's kind of being possessed by something. It's a great little graphic novel. It is a duology, so I didn't read the second book for a very long time. I actually only read it last year. I reread this in preparation for that, and I really wish that it wasn't just a duology. I wish there was a whole series, because it feels like there was a very sudden end to it when it could have been prolonged and gone throughout like a bunch of different adventures. But it is a very nice, like, horror-esque graphic novel, like alien-esque weird mutant being possessed horror graphic novel, which I really like graphic novels for horror. I don't know why. And also the art is really pretty. Let me see if I can find this page. It's really good. There's a lot of motion. I'm not an art critic, but there's a lot of motion in the art. It doesn't feel too cramped with words, but it's just a really great little graphic novel. I highly recommend. Swimmer Among the Stars by Kanishk Tharoor. I did a whole video about this. This is a short story anthology of beautiful little magical realism stories. I have a whole video where I go in depth on those little stories, so I'll keep this really brief. This is just a really well done short story collection. These all have a common theme of like magical realism, but also kind of questioning colonization, questioning cultural beliefs that are held and the importance of those cultural beliefs. So those are some major themes that you see. They're short stories, but they're just little pockets of like it leaves you wanting more. It's the best way to describe it. It's like, yes, it's a short story within its own right, and it tells the story that it wants to tell, but it leaves you wanting to see like a 10,000 page novel of the same short story, of the same characters, of the same concepts. And would those novels be good? Probably not, because the joy is that it's a short story and it leaves you wanting more. It leaves you desiring. I've said before, I don't like reading short story collections because I can't really sit down and just read all of them. So to know that I finished one, not only this one, I finished another one that's not on this list yet, a short story collection, and enjoyed it so much is really something different. Like, I don't usually finish these. So it was really great to find one, especially at Dollar Tree. Again, All My Colors by David Quantick, another book I have an in-depth review on. It's the story of this man who just is a failed man, like a failed author. He's so arrogant. His friends don't really like him. His wife doesn't really like him. But he just has this superiority complex because he's smart and he's always the smartest person in the room. He also has this eidetic memory, and at some point he realizes that he has memorized a book that nobody else seems to know. And not just people around him, like he's gone to libraries, he's gone to bookstores, he can't find this book. And he thinks, well, if I remember every single word of this book and nobody else can, why don't I just write this book and publish it by myself? So he does that. If you think that this is a literary novel about how plagiarism is wrong, you are mistaken. This is a supernatural horror, almost horror. It's not really like that terrifying. It's not like a horror thriller. It's got like a horror-esque supernatural element to it. And the reveal at the very end, because the reality that he knows it's not his book is haunting him throughout the story, and then you get to the very end and you're like, oh my god, it just all makes sense, and now all of the like murder that's been going on makes sense too. Oh, it's such a good story. It's so well told, and it's funny. It's like a cynical kind of funny, almost sardonic in a way, and so that really cuts through the horror and makes it really enjoyable to read. And it's really short. You could probably read this within like a couple sittings. If you're a fast reader, maybe just one sitting. But yeah, it is a great little book. Highly recommend. I swear we're getting into books that I have not actually made videos about before. This is The Yonahlossee Writing Camp for Girls by Anton DiSclafani. I still have mixed feelings to this day about this book. First of all, let me explain what I thought it was going to be. When I picked this up, I thought I was getting a period drama, sapphic horse girl romance. That is not what this is. This book is weird. This is one of those books where I was thinking about it for a really long time afterwards. I felt damaged by this book. And not just because it's well written. It is well written. It is a literary novel, so it's kind of hard to get through. It is about a 16-year-old girl in 1930 who was the cause of an accident that happened in her family. And so she is shipped off to this riding camp, this boarding school camp for the summer, what she thinks is the summer, and then it turns into like the whole year, and she's just supposed to be there away from her family. And she's really close with her family. She grew up isolated with them, so this is like the most traumatizing thing for her other than the accident that happened. And that through this, it's a discussion of like sexuality and growing up. And I wouldn't say it's a coming of age book, but it's also like it's not sexuality in like a good for her, yes girl, take a hold of your life moment. It's like sexuality in the sense of bad choices, bad decisions, and how bad decisions are fostered. I don't know how to explain it. Like I said, I still have mixed feelings about this book to the point where I like am afraid to reread it or like look at it sometimes. I almost got rid of this as soon as I finished it because I was just that like terrified about my feelings about this book, because it makes me sick to my stomach, but like in a good way. Like, yes, it's sickening to read, but it's like, that's the whole point, you know? I was doing my hot girl walks. That's when hot girl walks were really popular. And there was this one line where it's something like, I gave up so much for so little, or something like that, along those lines. And I would just think about that and start sobbing, like on my hot girl walk, like on the trail, just sobbing. And I couldn't stop thinking about this book. There are horses though, so that's good. There is horseback riding. So I did get that. She is a horse girl. I think I've talked about The Great Unknowable End by Kathryn Ormsbee before, but I don't know if I really went into depth about it. But The Great Unknowable End is set in 1970s, small town Kansas in 1970. It's dualist perspective where you have the main female character, Stella. Her mom has recently passed, so Stella is the oldest sister, is the caretaker. Her older brother has fucked off to join a cult, and she is left like picking up the pieces of her family. She has a very young sister. Her dad is now a single dad that needs to work. So she has given up all dreams of ever going to college and becoming a space engineer. I think she's either a space engineer or an astronaut. Galliard is a young boy who grew up in the cult. I think he was actually the first child born in the cult. And he has only known that. He's only known that lifestyle. He's only known being an outsider. Because, yeah, they're allowed to go out into the town, but the town really does not enjoy their company. And there's a lot of rumors about, like, what the cult is. And they're like, no, it's a commune. We're just hippies. We're hippies, not a cult, but they're a cult. Anyway, Galliard has spent his entire life serving the cult. Like, well, not the cult, the Red Sun, the community. He has spent his entire life doing that, and his big love is music, and so he really wants to make music in honor of the cult, spread the word of their community and their love and their belief system. But instead of that, he's kind of forced to do kitchen work, and a guy named Phoenix is chosen for the artist role because he's painting pictures of the community, and they think that would be better than his songs. Galliard also has Tourette's, which is really cool. I've never seen Tourette's represented in a book before, but I have met many people with Tourette's in my life. So it was great to see that in a book. And I don't have Tourette's. I don't know what the experience is like, so I can't say if it was represented correctly or not. But based off of the people that I knew and the way their tics worked, I would say it was a pretty accurate representation. I will defer to the people with actual Tourette's to make a judgment on that. Galliard and Stella meet, and they have like this weird summer together. It's magical realism, so there's just like, it's the real world, but there's just some things are happening. Like there's blood rain, there's these purple numbers that are counting down to like the end of times. And obviously the cult is like, oh my God, we were all right. This is what we were preparing for. Get to the bunker. And everyone else is like, wow, there's a lot of tornadoes around, what's going on? Anyway, it's a really sad book, but it's also like hopeful, a little lighthearted as you watch these two people kind of fall in love, but it's less about falling in love and more about just finding themselves and understanding who they are, what they want in life, and taking hold of that. And just discovering themselves through knowing each other, which is something I always love. When I think of a coming age book, this is the kind of book that I'm looking for. Just two people or a group of people learning about themselves and what they want in life through knowing each other and being changed by each other. Like, that is coming of age. That is beautiful. So yes, The Great Unknowable End by Kathryn Ormsbee. It's one of my favorites. I always recommend it to people. Technically, this counts. This is The Toll. I just recently finished The Toll, and technically it counts because I did find this at a Dollar Tree. I have since ripped the sticker off. I don't know why I did that. So I can't prove that I got this at a Dollar Tree, but I guarantee you I did. I had bought the Scythe book, the first book of the series, for like National Buy a Book Day. So I bought that. Then like a week later, I was in Dollar Tree and I saw this and I was like, that looks familiar. And it said it was part of the Scythe series. I was like, how is that possible that I got this at Dollar Tree? It's the last book. And I swear to you, I got it at Dollar Tree because it is hardcover and the rest of my books for the series are soft cover or paperback. I would not get matching books on purpose. I just get them as I find them, okay? Arc of a Scythe, which encompasses technically 4 books, but it's Scythe, Thunderhead, The Toll, and Gleanings, which is the like bonus book that it's not really part of the series. They are a futuristic world in which a benevolent AI has become the ruler of the entire earth. Everything is controlled by it. It's called the Thunderhead. Everything's controlled by it. It talks to everyone. It has erased world hunger. It has cured every disease. It has cured old age because people can return to a biological younger age at any point in their life. It has gotten to a point where people no longer feel pain. If they decide to jump off of a building, it's called splatting. It's something people do. If they decide to jump off of a building, they can be revived. If they are killed in any way, they're rendered dead-ish and then are just revived. And so in order to curb population growth, certain people are given a license to kill. These people are called the Scythes. They have their own community, their own commandments that they talk about, their own rules, their own self-government, where they, punish each other for the things that they do wrong. They work within their own community. They have no contact with the Thunderhead. And if you are killed by a Scythe in any way, no matter what the way is, you are dead. And there are rules around it. So like, if a Scythe kills somebody, they have to give their entire immediate family immunity. There's so much cool stuff that goes on. There's so much amazing world building. I just finished the series recently, so I'm really riding the Scythe high. But the book is so great, and it really expands the story, especially this one. This one really expands the story. This is the final one, so I'm not going to talk in depth about what happens in this one. I'm just going to make you buy the whole series like I did with my sister. Anyway, the first book kind of starts with this philosophical debate about the amount of pride you should be taking in this job. Like, there are some Scythes who take too much enjoyment in the act of killing, while other Scythes feel like this is something that should be a burden on us to do. It should be an honorable burden. The first book kind of ends with like that philosophical debate being left up for the reader to kind of go, I don't know, like, what's going to happen? The second book takes that philosophical debate and expands it, really puts it into action with the main characters. There's one main character who really, really opposes it, and so he takes matters into his own hands to try and get those Scythes to change their ways, if you get my drift. The other main character becomes this like voice for the younger generation to follow, and it's just so good. I felt like all of the world building was used perfectly to help enhance the story rather than just give you so much information. Like, nothing felt like it was there for no reason. Everything felt like it was used as a building block to a bigger idea, if that makes sense. So if you are hesitant on reading the Scythe series, this is your time to go and read it because it's great. All right, and this is the last book I'm going to talk about. This is a book where I highly recommend it, but I don't want people to read it because it was emotionally devastating to the point where I would go as far as saying I was like probably having an anxiety attack reading this book because I was hyperventilating, I was bawling my eyes out, I could not stop myself from crying. And even to this day, when I think about this book and try and explain it, I start to tear up. I'm going to try not to, but I might. This is White Chrysanthemum by Lynn Bracht. This is a historical fiction story about two sisters in Korea. It is split in two perspectives. The first one is the older sister named Hana, who is 16 during, 1943, in the middle of World War II. And Hana, I'm gonna cry. Hana gets captured by a Japanese soldier and forced to become a comfort woman. If you're not familiar with that, it is women who were stolen and forced into sexual slavery for, I think it was just Japan that did this, but soldiers, I'll say soldiers. This was while Japan occupied Korea, so many of the women were Korean. Many of them were underage. The second perspective is, this one is the one that gets me. I'm gonna cry, I swear. I'm gonna try not to. The second perspective is the younger sister, Emmy, in 2011 when she is an old woman trying, it gets to me. I don't wanna cry on camera, okay. Trying to unpack the trauma she faced going through two different wars, World War II and the Korean War, losing her entire family, being attached to an abusive husband, and also trying to figure out what really happened to her sister. Because she knows, but she wants the answer. She wants to truly know. And as an old lady, she's able to just like unpack all the traumas that she has, the trauma she's been keeping from her children. I look so silly because I'm like trying not to cry, and I see myself trying not to cry. A very tough read because the author doesn't sugarcoat anything. It's not a fade to black. It's not swept under the rug at all. What has happened is stated on the page, and it's awful. It is very awful. Read every trigger warning before going into this. What sucks and what I think makes this hurt even more to read is that it's based off real events. Like, this is things that actually happen to women. And that's what really makes this a tough read, is just knowing the horrors of men in war. I will say, if you are still tempted to read it, it's not a happy ending, but it is a satisfying ending. It is, I'm gonna cry thinking about it. It is a satisfying ending. I thought I would be able to get through that without tearing up. I'm like really trying hard not to mess up my makeup. I spent a really long time on it. It's one of those books where it's like so good. It's 5 out of 5 stars. I would give it 1 billion stars, but it's not fun to read. I was inconsolable. I was a mess. I've never picked that book up ever to reread just because I have vivid flashbacks of myself reading that book. It is so hard. It's such a good book though. Oh my god. If you are into like historical fiction and are okay with that kind of stuff going on, it is wonderfully told. Thank you so much, Lynn Bracht, for that emotional devastation. Okay. I'm gonna pull myself together now. Those are my top 10 Dollar Tree books. Most of them I own because, as I've said before, I keep the books that I really like. I had a hard time going through it because I know I read books before I started like logging them on Storygraph, but I couldn't remember those. So there might have been good ones that I don't have anymore for whatever reason, and I just didn't log. So I don't know, maybe there are, but these are the top 10 that I could remember reading and that I had on hand to talk about. So if you're ever in Dollar Tree getting like a soft drink or some cotton candy or whatever, check out the book section, see what they have. Sometimes you find some really, really bad books. I have plenty of Dollar Tree rant reviews, but sometimes they have really amazing books that are wonderful and you would never find on the shelf anywhere else. Give it a try. I would say all of these are definitely worth the $1 that I spent, or $1.25 that I spent on them. I probably would pay full price. Knowing what I know now about them, I think I would pay full price for most of them, unless I've stated differently in another video, because I think for the swallows I stated something different. That's going to be it from me. If you liked that video, like and subscribe. Also give me video ideas, because I don't have any content. I don't have any like book centered content. I've hit a slump. I don't know. I just haven't read any Dollar Tree. I did stock up, so I have new ones. I don't have any like Dollar Tree book ideas that I can talk about, so give me ideas. That's gonna be it for me. Okay, bye! I don't remember that much about this anymore, actually.